Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning. So let's
This
wait
meeting is being recorded.
few more minutes, then we'll get started. Okay, let's get started. Um, Sorry, I could not take the session yesterday as I was not feeling well. Uh, Hope you guys have, anyhow, the yesterday session was more of the practice session to make you aware about how the functions, whatever we learned, right, day before yesterday about functions and control structure. It was about that practical implementation of that. So I hope you guys have had a learning about it, right? Looking at the notebook and all, right? So today we are going to start a new topic. So with that, let's get started. So before that, you guys have any questions or any queries from previous sessions? We can discuss first those about those. Else, then we will start with a new topic. Okay, nothing. Cool. Okay, so then again, let me know if you are guys are able to see my screen, right? I hope you guys are able to see my screen. Okay, with that, let's get started. Okay, fine. So let's today's topic is name and spaces, right? So you guys, if you watch Hindi movies, then you might have these scene. Even if not, then what this scene says is that so he is a legendary actor in Bollywood cinemas, right? Amitabh Bachchan. So he has this dialogue: "I can talk English, I can walk English, I can run English because English is a funny language." Eventually, we can say the same thing about Python as well, right? So why so? So taking cue from this gentleman, right? So we can say that Python is also a funny language. So why so? A variable one, like you define a variable. Now it can be an integer, it can be a float, it can be even a class, or it can be a function. So there is no restriction of any variable name, that only if this is certain kind of variable name, then it can be string, or it can be a number, or it can be integer. You can immediately change, assign a new value. Your type of the variable has been changed, right? Similarly, a function, you can create any kind of a name of the function, right? Even Yo Hari Singh for that matter. You can have anything within this function and it will run. You will just have to simply call it. Okay, so all these variables are actually objects, and the way to reach these objects are through names. So that's why these names has to be unique identifiers, and you have to make sure that whatever functions you are going to call, that has the unique names, and those are not reserved names from Python. Okay, so now where do you keep all these contradiction without causing a conflict? So we store them in a namespaces. So there is something called namespaces where all these variable names are stored such that what variable belongs to which function or variable. Okay. So as we take a peep into namespaces, right, we need to understand what happens to all those variables or rather objects that we ourselves create or import these through modules. Right. So as you can see here, let's say if you have assigned you know some variables, let's say if those are some sort of name or something, right, some kind of a same kind of a string, then it has been it looks like that they have put it into one bucket. Similarly, if you have another variable, then it looks like it has certain space and it has been assigned, all same similar kind of variables are assigned to some other place, right? So let's see. So a namespace is thus a logical concept. Think of it like a different tumblers holding different names. Okay. So modules and namespaces go hand in hand. A module, whenever it is important, gets its own namespace within which it exists. So like we call libraries, right? We call import length, import math, import what do you say, pandas, import numpys. So all these are nothing but modules. Okay. So as soon as you call them or you import them, it gets its own namespace. Okay. So each namespace is completely isolated. Two modules can have the same name within them. So what does it mean? That math, let's say if I am calling a function import uh, math, so math is a namespace. Now within math I can have many functions, right? Within math I can have sum, I can have addition, I can have subtraction, like that, right? So how can I call? And similarly I can define some other, let's say library, which may be let's say import pandas. Now pandas can also have sum or subtraction. So that's what it is saying, that same name can be there within two different modules. The way to differentiate would be is that I, let's say if I have something in math dot sum, so I will call it that sum function as math dot sum. Similarly, I will call, if that is an another module, I will call it as module 2 dot sum. Clear? So what I'm trying, I'll just repeat this thing. So basically, I can have two different functions with the same name, but they has to be in a two different modules, because each module has its own namespace. So there will be no conflict of interest, right? So let's say if you want to call a function from math library, so you have to call math dot sum. Or if you have to call the sum function from different library, let's say if it exists in some other library also, then you have to call that library module too, and then have to call that function. Okay. Now there can be a module named integer and another module named float, right? Both can have the same add within them. So that's what I'm saying, right? As similarly, integer is a module, float is a module, both can have add within them. So when we invoke add, which resides within integer, we can invoke it as integer dot add. And if we want to invoke from float, we can call it as float dot add. Okay. Whenever you run a simple Python script, the interpreter treats it as a module called main. Okay. So whenever there is a Python script which we run, right, or these Jupyter notebooks, whatever we are running, right? So how interpreter treats it as that this is the name. So basically you can think of like this is the name what Python is giving to your script. No matter whatever name you have assigned, that doesn't matter. But this is the by default uh, name of the Python script, which is getting run on this on that time. Okay, so it gets its own namespace. The built-in functions that you would use also live in a module called built-in and have their own namespace. Okay, so these are something to name main and built-in, which is there within Python and their own namespace. Okay, so now more about modules and namespaces. So a namespace is obviously enough a space that hold a bunch of names. The standard Python tutorials say that they are a mapping from names to object. Think of it as a big list of all the names that you have defined, either explicitly or by importing from modules. It's not something that you can have to create. It is created whenever necessary. To understand namespaces, we would also need to understand the concept of modules, coming down to the details in a while. However, for the moment, think of it as a file which contains your Python code. Okay, the code can be anything: function, class, plain code, even a module. Each module gets its own space. So what does it mean? Basically, you can think if that namespaces is a big list or a big dictionary in which the information is mentioned that this is the variable name, let's say variable one, and then this is the value or this is a kind of object it holds. Likewise, whatever variables you are defining within the script or you are importing through modules or different libraries, each of the variable or function or classes gets its own namespace. Okay, so you can't have two functions or two classes in the same module with the same name. So always be clear, within the same module you cannot have the same name of two functions or two classes. However, within different module you can have, and we just saw how to call them if they exist in the two different modules. Okay, so each namespace is also completely isolated. So two modules can have the same names within them. You can have a module called integer. So we have already seen this example, right? So this you can have, right? So what is the scope of a namespace, right? So a Python statement can access variables in a local namespace and a global namespace. If local and a global variable have the same name, the local variable shadows the global variable. So let's say if there are two variables which are local and global with the same name. So we saw this example, right? We were seeing that day before yesterday that we have defined one variable outside the function. So that is a global variable. And we have given the same name within the function. That is a local variable space, right? So the local variable shadows the global one. Okay. So each function has its own local namespaces. Class method follows the same scoping rule as ordinary functions, right? Python make educated guesses or whether variables are local or global. It assumes that any variable assigned a value in a function is local. So that's what I was telling you, right? Any variable which is assigned in a function is local. And let's say if you have assigned something outside the function, that will be a global assignment. Okay, so therefore, in order to assign a value to a global variable within the function, you must first use the global statement. So, if you have to say, let's say, define something within the function, but you want to make sure that that is a global scope, then you use the global and then variable name. You define it like that. Okay, so global variable name tells Python that variable name is a global variable. So Python stops searching for the local namespace for the variable. Okay, so I hope that is clear because we have seen this example right day before yesterday also. Okay, so a module. So just a quick check if you guys have any questions. No. So what is namespace? I have all. So that's what are keep on discussing, right? So basically, a space which is assigned for your name is what we call namespace. Like think of like your brain, right? You have certain names, like you have a certain name and a person's image or a person's information with a certain name, right? Let's say if you have a friend whose name is there, so you have that memory. I can only speak in English, I cannot explain in Hindi because there are other people who cannot understand Hindi. So As I was telling that namespace, think it of like as a brain, wherein you have in your brain also you have certain people name, and then you have certain memories of them, their characteristics, their gender, how they are, how close you are with them, all these things associated, right? So how do you guys remember it? So basically there are certain spaces, name space in your brain also. That's how you remember, that's how you associated name with a certain people, right? Okay. So a module allows you to logically organize your Python code, right? Grouping related code into a module makes the code easier to understand and use. A module in a Python object with arbitrary name attribute you can bind and reference. Simply, a module is file consisting of Python code. It can be defined function, class, or variable. It can also include a runnable code. It is nothing but how do you organize your code? So let's say if you have 1,000 line of code, it is very difficult to even from the readability point of view also, that you have such a big file. So what you can do is you can convert it into a different module, right? So if you see, when you are importing library, what does it mean? It is actually a certain piece of code which somebody has already written, and then you are calling from that different file, right? Same thing like that, you can split your own Python code into multiple files, and then you can call them one by one, right? So let's say if you created some file, you just say that that is a code one, and then let's say if you define some function from there, you can call from code one import this function. That's all. That's how easy it is. So that makes your code short, easy to understand, clean. Okay. So the Python code for a module named, let's say a name, normally resides, in a file .py. Here is an example of simple module support.py. So likewise, right? So you can, divide your code and put them in a multiple scripts so that your codes get shorter. Okay. Now importing modules. You can use any Python source file as a module by executing an import statement in some other source file, right? So that's what I was telling you. You can call one of your code into the another code. Simply import support as SP, and then whatever is there within that, you can call that SP dot. Let's say if there you have defined some print function over there, you can call it like that. Okay. Similarly, import math. ये भी अगर आप देखो तो it is like that only. Somebody has written this math का script somewhere, and it exists in GitHub, and you are calling it from there. That's all. Okay, so this math.cl you are doing, you are calling this cl function in math, and if you open the math file, you will find this function over there. Okay. Similarly, in this case, we have got access to the module supports namespace. All the work will be done inside the module namespace. Okay, fine. So that's how you can import module, right? From that import statement, like that. From that module name, import whatever function variable you want to import. It works like that. Okay. So this imports a name or a few separated by commas from a module namespace directly into the programs. To use the name you imported, you no longer have to use prefix, just the name directly. This can be useful if you know for certain you will only need to use a few names only. So what does it mean? There are two ways to call a function. Okay. So in here, I could have either written it like that, that import math and then math.cl function, or I could have done, or I could have done from math import direct that function name. Okay. CL, and then I can use it like that. I don't have to give math dot over here. I can directly use CL function over there. As simple as that, right? So basically, here I have not explicitly mentioned that this CL function where it is coming from, right? So that's the reason I have to tell them clearly that it is coming from math library. That's the reason it is math.cl you have given, or you can give here itself, you can tell that from math library I need to import CL function, so that when you have explicitly mentioned that this function you are calling from here, then you can directly use it like that. So it is your choice how you want to write it. Okay. Similarly here, we can say from functions import multiply, and then multiply will work here. Or I could have said import functions and then could do functions dot multiply. Okay, so from module name, import this like this we can do. So this imports all the names from inside the module. So let's say if you are not sure and there are many variables within that, right? Or many functions within that which you want to import, you can simply put this asterisk symbol. So this asterisk symbol, what it will do is it will import everything, whatever is there. So let's say if there are 10 functions, you will say that why do I have to write 10 names over here, right? Doesn't make sense. So you could have simply put star symbol. It will make sure that all the 10 functions or whatever functions, classes, whatever is there, it will import everything within this module. Okay. Generally, it is not a good idea because it leads to namespace pollution. Why so? Because we don't know what is there, what all things are there within this module, right? So it might happen that we might have something clashing, right? हो सकता है that in your code you have used some variable, let's say variable 1 in your code prior to this, right? But it might happen that within this module also there is something called variable 1, right? So if you are importing it like that, you are overwriting your predefined functions or variables, and that's why it is polluting. So it is always good practice. Either you tell clearly what all things you want to import, right? Or you just directly use that module name and then dot whatever functions you want to use. You should avoid using it like that. Okay. The reload function, once module is imported, the code inside the module are imported only once. After the first import, the later import simply do nothing. So, right, even if you type it again and again, it doesn't matter. The very first time if you load it, it just imported and then done. So it will be there till you have not closed your session or it has not been restarted. Okay. So this is by design. Actually, import statement are very heavy and expensive, resource expensive. It takes a bit amount of time if you have really big file. So to do so, use the reload function. Reload in a sense, refresh the module. The format of the reload function is reload module name. To run the reload functions, it is now a method. We need to import the IMP module. So let's see how we can reload it also. Right. Okay. So what we were seeing here is, let's say if actually this function is not very useful, right? I mean, why? Because actually you have imported it once and that's it. It is already done, right? Now it will be there as long as your that particular notebook or script is active. Until it has gone crash or it has been restarted, your module will be there. But it's still, let's say if you want to reload it, so instead of just running this command again, you can simply do the reload all and give the module name. That's all. Okay. So but at least I have not seen much of the use case of this reload, but it is like just for FYI. Okay. Then we have directory function. The directory function is used all components and attributes inside the module. Okay, so basically you can check what is there, all the functions and components within that module. So let's say if you have import math, right? Now you don't know what is there within that. You can simply do print, then directory of math. You will see what else things are there. There are log, modf, nan, pi, and all. So that's why see there are so many things, and that's why we want to avoid from import, from math import star. We don't want to import each and all such a big list. Okay. The list contains the name of all the modules, variables, and functions that are defined in a module. Okay. So everything you can see in the list as soon as you put the directory, right? So here the special string variable name is the module's name and file is the file name from which module was loaded. Okay. So the special string variable name, right? As you can see here, it is the module name, and the file, as you can see here, file also should be here, is from which module was loaded. Okay. Important thing to remember is only this directory function you can use if you really want to see what all things are there within that library. Okay. So let's take a look, right? So let's open a new library and let's try to see what how we can use this function, right? So let's say I import pandas every all the time, right? So let's say if I want to see what all things are there in the pandas. Okay, so why it did not work? Because I have not imported it. So first you have to import pandas, and then you do this directory pandas. So now you see it is taking so much time because there might be, I believe there might be so many things within this. Right, so let's see. So as soon as you are seeing this asterisk symbol, which means that it is still running. You see, there are so many things. So it took so much time. There is read CSV, read FVW, all these things. Actually, this is a very big library and very useful library. And you can see all of these things are there. Okay. So that's how you can check what all things are there so that you know how I can use it. So far, we have used it to read CSV file, right? Now you can use it for some other purpose also. So let's say what all things you can read with this. So let's see, read CSV, read Excel file, reads HDF, HTML, JSON, Parquet file, Pickle, SAS. So all these things you can read, SQL query, SQL table, and all these things you can actually read through this using library. Okay, fine. When we import a module, the Python interpreter searches for the module in the following sequence. Okay, the correct. So like here I have imported, right? Now how do, from where it is importing? That is the question, right? How does it know where to look for pandas? So this is the sequence it search for. It is not just one folder or one library it is looking for, right? It looks at certain spaces, and let's see where all it searches and in what sequence. So first of all it checks in your current directory, right? It will check in your current directory. So because pandas I don't have in my library, so it will fail, right? So it will fail, then it will go where, if module is not found, it then searches each directory in the shell variable of Python path. So then it will go to your Python path where your Python is installed, and that's where it will search. Okay, and that's why it will find. So I'll tell you one thing. Let me think of a library. Okay, so let's imagine this is a library here, and it says that no module found. Have you ever wondered why it is giving no module found? Because simply it tried searching first in my current directory, did not find it. Then it searched here in my Python path, it did not find here. Then if all else fails, Python checks the default path. Unix में default path ये होता है user library Python 3, right? Then it searches for path stored in the system, not syspath variable, right? Contains the correct directory Python path installation. It searches everywhere. So let's do that, right? So there is this library called import sys, and within that it has all the paths where it can search. So you see all these paths where it searches for any of the import what you are doing. Okay. So let's say, let's look at this location, right? See users Neha Anaconda thing. Let me show you guys this. So I'm just searching for libraries wherever it is installing. Okay. So actually, one of the folders only it has, sorry, it is storing all the libraries which we are installing. So what you remember, we do that pip install and then that library. So that's where it is installing all those libraries. So I'm just trying to find that specific folder. I'm unable to, but that's what you can see here in Anaconda. Within this, it is installing all the libraries wherever you are doing that pip install, and then when you are importing, it simply checks in this location and that's where it loads. As simple as that. This is all the path. In fact, from here you can check that where all it might be checking. So actually it is this path, right? Mostly side packages. That's where it is storing all your packages. Okay, all your libraries are getting loaded here or installed here. From there it is loading. Okay, now you can append such certain paths also. So let's say if you want to load something from somewhere else also, you can actually do simply sys.path append, because it is a list, right? So we have seen that how we can append in a list. Simply append. Okay, system path append, and you can give any path, whatever you want. So let's say if I want to give a new path, right? So let's say I want to give this path, let's say this path. I think it is already there, but let me see. So this is already there, but yeah, let me see if it takes, right? So let me, because this Python for DS is already here, so let me just remove this and just add Python, this one. Okay, so you have to give it in two. You might have seen that, right? There were two slashes. Yes. So now if you do sys.path, this also will be added in your system. You see it has added in the last. So that's all we are, what we are doing is, let's say if there is a different code which is stored somewhere else, you can simply do this, add the path over there wherever that code is stored, and simply call that file name. Let's say import whatever is this function, right? And then sorry, from this import, you know this function, right? You can simply load it like that and use it here. Okay, just one thing here, this is not a py file, this is ipviy file. If you see the syntax, right? So you will see where, okay, let me show you wherever we are storing with these files, right? If you see here, these are ipyny file, not py file. So the difference, like I was telling you, right? Because these are notebooks, Jupyter notebook. Okay, so that's why their extension are ip.y. Whenever it is a Python file, simply Python file as in, as you have loaded in Spider and all, where you don't save the output, then it is a .py file, right? Then if it is a py file, then you can load it like that. If it is a ipny file, then you have to call something called, there is some called import ipynb, and then it works. Okay, so again, I don't have this. I will have to install it. And how can I install it? Simply pip install. If I do pip install, and this would work. As you can see, it is installing. So this is the beauty of this. This pip install I could have given in command prompt. Ideally, I should give in command prompt, that anaconda prompt, and then I should give. But let's say I'm too lazy to open that. I can run it from there, but I just have to put this exclamatory sign, because these are magic commands. As soon as you put this exclamatory sign, it gets magic command, and you can run your command shell from here. So that's what you are doing. So you see here, it has already satisfied, successfully installed, and then all this. So now if you install this, it should work. So as you saw, it worked. It imported this. Now this simple function you are able to call. So as you see this simple function, it this it is printing all these things. Enter any number, let's say 10. It does all the jobs. So it has actually imported whatever it was there in this simple function. Okay, so that is the use case of all the modules. How do we import it and all, right? Simply because if I include this simple function over here, it will become very lengthy. This particular code will become very lengthy. Okay, any questions so far? Why do we import? How does it load? What are the different Python variables we look for, or paths? No, all good so far. Okay, fine. So, I mean, this is a very good description of the ease, how easy the Python are, right? So, I mean, as you can see, the very first picture is the non-programmer where we put bits and pieces in one by one, and then we put a lot of hard work. So basically, there is a lot of hard work, but not smart work, right? Then we have programmers which do smart work, okay? Because you can think of it as like, why do we need coding? Coding is actually a way of automation of the process, right? Something which you keep on doing manually, you have automated that, isn't it? That's the coding. So that's why non-programming people say that those do very hard work but not smart work. Programmers do smart work, right? And Python programmer even much more of smart work with more ease. Okay. So now let's see why we are saying that, right? So a Python package is just a collection of Python modules. A package is just a way of collecting related modules together with a single tree-like structure, right? So whatever packages we are calling math or pandas, numpy, we will see some more packages also. So that's all. That is nothing but group of various similar kind of functions and modules together in a tree-like structure. How to create a package? Store all your modules in a folder. The folder name is the package name. Create initialize file in the same folder with mods, import statement of all the modules, and import package in the program with import package the name command. That's all. So so I mean, you can create. So likewise we did, right? So if you see here, we have already imported one file over here. So if you see, I have actually converted my this PDF file which I only created into a package, and then that's how I am importing. Okay, so that's what it is trying to say. So that's how easy it is, to break your code, to make it more modularized, right? Now with that, let's try to do some hands-on with some of the notebooks. Okay, fine. In here, okay. So in here, we will learn more about some of the more, different functions, right? Okay. So likewise, we have different modules, right? One module F is import, math. So we imported math. So there are different functions, square root. So this will work. You can see, you can get the answers, right? Similarly, power works. So power is 2 to the power 5. Then there is this directory math. You can see all these functions are available. So basically you can use whatever you want among this, right? You can use sin h, tan h. All these functions are available. Not simple this, but these kind of functions are also available. Similarly, there is something called calendar. This is also very important module when you have to work with the data, right? Because most of the time you have dates in your system which you want to assign it to a date. Because what do you think, what kind of variable type can be a date, right? Even though those are numbers, but those, it cannot be integer, right? It has to be a certain type, that is date type. right? So similarly, there has to be some operations which need to be performed for that, right? So similarly, there is like you can call calendar. Let's see what all functions are there in calendar, right? So there is this, all these things are there. These are variable name. Monday, Saturday, and all these things exist. January, February exist, right? Now let's see what all we can use. So basically, you can you have given this. You can say right, if let's say you want to see the calendar of August month of 2021, you can see the entire calendar, right? You can check whether it is a leap or not, right? Whether it is a leap or not, so that you can check. Okay, so likewise, you can check. Let's say 2020 was a leap. Yes, 2020 was a leap year. Okay, so there are other various functionality which you can see, so you can use accordingly whatever you want to, right? Similarly, there is something called date time. Likewise, calendar, we have date time now. So let's say if I want to know what is the current date time, right? So I can simply call today. So it is 20th May, 11:44, and up to seconds also, right? So so how I call it, so there was this date time module. Within that there was another date time folder, and then I called now function. Let's say today it will just tell me the date, right? Similarly, there is this function, right? And then you can define as a data in a certain format also. So this is I was telling you, right? If you see type of the A, it is date time date, and it is what very important. Okay, because even though date have numbers, but it is not an integer. So let's say whenever you have a date in your data set, you should always make sure that you are converting into this format. So simply you give all that column name. Let's say if you have uh, date uh, column name, simply you can give date time. Likewise, you can give uh, date time date. Let's say you have a data frame df, right? df and date column is that, you can give it like that, right? So it will convert your date into this format, right? Important thing is type. If you will check, it should be date time date. Then once you have it, you can simply check what is the year, what is month, what is day. All these things you can check, right? Okay, similarly you can define like this you can do, this is time which you can define like that, right? So all this is also another like very important library where you can use all these functions. Okay, then you have already read about pandas, numpys, right? So within pandas you can work on data frame series. There is another thing called web browser. So now what this web browser does is, let's see. So I have given one link, and as soon as I click on this, it just opened that. So what it did do, basically, this web browser, again, this is some library which somebody has written. So I just have to give the link which I want to open, and I did not open it manually. I simply gave web browser dot open and that website, and it just gave true, and it has opened. Let's say if I will give something which does not exist, let me give one. I think it will give me false. 404 not found, because I just tweaked it manually and gave the wrong thing. Okay, so yeah, okay, let me close it so you can read these links. Okay, okay, cool. Then we can actually create the data frames using NumPy and dictionary. So what is data frame, right? So I mean, data frame is also it is you have number of rows, and then you have number of columns, right? You have that particular structure. So basically, whatever you see in a CSV file, right, you can read it as a data frame. And again, you have to make sure that number of length of each of the column are same. As you can see here, this is the array I have converted, right? Arrays are also, but the data frame. The only difference is array will have the type of the data will be same in array, but in data frame it can be different also. So here it is 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. All are integer. But let's say if I just remove this, it will give me error, right? Like so here, okay, this is array, so that it had worked. But for data frame, it will give you error because it will say it is not of equal length. Let's see here, right? So here I have converted into a data frame, but let's say if I remove it one, it will give me error saying that all arrays must be of same length. Okay, because data frame has simply has to be of all the same length. However, it can be a different thing also. Here it can be in integers also. Now this has become integer. Still it will work. Okay. And data frame is what we use a lot, right? So that's why it is. So let's say we read this one data frame called universities.csv. We have this data. Let's see. So how this data looks like. That's what it is, right? From Jupyter itself, you can see how your data look like, right? So you have a lot of university information. Then you have, what is their ranking, whether what is the top 10, right? Like top 100, what is their ranking, and then there are certain things like what are the expenses, what is their graduate rate, and all. So all these things are here in this data frame, so you can check what is the type, right? So it is pandas core data frame. Right now so this is one way to read underscore CSV have read the full data. Let's say if you don't want to read the full data, you can give number of rows, how many rows you want to read. So only two you will read, right? So let's say if you have very heavy data or very big data, you don't want to read it fully, you can give it like that. Then you have then you can simply do the same thing with column also, that you don't want to use all the columns or read all the columns, you can simply just look at few columns only. Right, so 1 and 3 I have checked here, set and accept. Right, then you can check all the column names, whatever you have, right? It will show you, and you can select, and you can select it like that also. So let's say if you have got the entire data, right? So you have got the entire data. So if I do the df columns, it will show you all the column names of your data frame. But let's say if you want to select only few, let's say only two these column you want to select, you can just put double brackets and assign it like that, right? So only two columns will be selected. Let's say then you just want to see the head or tail that you can see, right? This will tell you head means it will show you top 5 number of rows. Let's say if you want to see 10 or more, you can give that number. It will show you the head means top of the rows. If you give the tail, which means that end of the observation, it will show you. So you see here it is telling you what is there in the end. Similarly, you can see last 10 observations. Right, this is just for the data checking, like what do you want to see with in the data and all, right? Then you can access the data frame using index location. So what is this I location is nothing but index location. So let's say second number of row you want to see, you can simply do that by giving I location to. Then if you see here in head, it has given you this entry. So CMU 1260 and all. So it has given all these things, CMU, SWAT 2060 and all. So likewise, you can either get one index or you can give here range also. 3 to 6, it will show you this information. 3, 4, 5 rows, it is showing you. Okay, cool. Then you have this. Okay, so what we did here is, so this university, if you see, this was a column. But let's say I don't want to use it as a column. I want to use it as an index. Index right now index is 15, 16, 17. But I want to remove these indexes and I want to use this column as an index. Right? Then how can I do it? Simply use this index column and give that column name what I want to use that as an index. Okay. And as you can see here, instead of a column, now it is an index, and that's how you can use it. So now if you do that index location, you have to give this. df to log this, right? Still iloc will work, index location will work, but let's say if you want to call using this index, then you have to give this. If you give I here, let's see what happens. It won't work. It cannot index the location non-integer because I lock is index location, integer होना चाहिए ये. Like, so if you don't have integer index, if you have these kind of indexes, then use lock. Lock is also location and which one you want to do it. So let's say Yale University you want. So Yale University ka data you have got here. You can put a uh, range also over here, right? Then you have something called dot shape. You can take the shape also of the data frame. You can drop something. You can have to simply drop Yale. Whatever data you have, now you see Yale University was there at the last, now it has dropped. So simply you can drop any of the row using that index. Okay, now you have this 24 instead of 25. Okay, then you can so this was a simple drop because it was a row wise drop. Okay, so x is equal to 0, ideally you should have given, but that is a default value, that's why there was no problem. But I think I have already told you, if you want to drop something, right, and then you have to give x's, and if it is a column wise operation, then you have to give x is equal to 1. So top 10, if you see, it is a column, and if you want to drop that column, you have to give drop column name, and you have to define x is 1, that is it's a column. Okay, so as you do it, your column has also dropped, right? So shape, if you see, now it is 5 number of columns, earlier it was 6. Likewise, you can drop either number of rows and columns depending on what you want to do. Okay, then you have something called describe. So what it does is, it just give you a quick snapshot or quick summary of what is your data look like. So as you can see here, it is telling you about all those numerical columns, and it is telling you what is the count, what is the mean value, right? What is the minimum 25th percentile, 75th percentile. So it gives you the distribution of the value of that particular column. So let's say if I want to see expense, like typically kya distribution hai expense ka. So if you see, it is telling that kuch university hai, their minimum is 8,000 only, but some of the university has expense 63,000, so they have such a huge variation, right? Mean value or average expenditure is around 27,000. Right? So it tells you a good statistics about your data set. Okay, fine. Then you have something called handling the null values also, right? So how you can do it, let's say you have defined a data frame. So here I have defined data frame, and let's see how it is, right? So I have given data frame. To define a data frame, I can simply do data frame and give the list. So I have given this list 1 2 3 and then 5 6 7 8 9, sorry, right? So likewise I have given 4 list which has made 4 rows, right? So here you can see there are NAs in the data, and NAs in the data I can define np.n nan. Basically NP is numpy library, right? So we saw in numpy libraries, you can check there is a something called nan, and if I have to show the value of this, it's basically NA value, that's all. Right, nan. So it's NA value. Okay, so let's say if I want to, how do I treat NA values, because actually it happens in data set you have lot of null values, then how do you treat it? So basically in the data frame itself you have a something called drop NA, so you can do that, right? Simply do drop NA and it's done. So what it does, जितने भी NA थे जिस भी row में यहाँ everywhere it has dropped. So now you see only one row is left, that is first. Everywhere else it has removed it. But this is some which is not feasible, because let's say if I have, like, why should I remove this row, right? Because it has other two values also, na. Only one value was missing, it doesn't mean that I will remove the entire row. So this is not right. Okay. Another way is, you decide how equal to all means अगर सारी values null है, then only I will remove it. Okay, so as you can see here, only the last row has been removed. This kind of makes sense. अगर मेरी रो में सारे ही values null है, then of course I should be removing it, right? So that's why I have removed it. So this kind of makes sense. Okay, so more typically we use this one, and for this one, wherever these n is, we use other things, how to treat it. Okay, so let's see this. Now here what it does, x is equal to 1, drop the columns having NAs in all the columns. So if you see here, there were all the columns. There is no column where there is no null. Okay, so let me add another value. I think that would be, okay, I think that's what I wanted. Okay, so if I have this, right, तो अगर now यहाँ पे अगर आप देखोगे, there at least I have one column in which there is no null value. तो यहाँ पर I will get one column. So this is this wise operation. Again, it exists, but it is not used. Used is only this, where you have all the NAs, those columns only you remove. But again, it is individual choice. But let's say if your project demands it like that, then you, of course, there is way exist and you can do that. Then you have certain thresholds. Drop the rows not having at least two value. So here this is the threshold. Instead of one, you should count two, right? So if there are at least two values which are not null, you can keep it. So likewise you can do. Then at the last, how do I treat null values? Simply fill NA. So if I do fill NA, you see all the null values, wherever it was null, I have filled with 1. So here it is filled with 1. Here it is filled with 1. Okay. Here there were two nulls. It is filled with 1. So this is how you treat NA values. So typically we fill NAs with mean value or like average value, or again it depends on your use case. But that's how you identify, and then you treat null values. Okay, so all these functions exist in Pandas library, right? Any questions? No? So regarding the assignments and all, you can connect with ExcelR team. They will help you out. And regarding array, so array is nothing but it's a 2D or a 3D structure in which you can have multiple list also within that. And we will see that. Don't worry about it. We will see that when we will be learning further. NumPy is again another library, right? Like Pandas, where similarly we have NumPy. Okay, so we will see more of that use case. So we have these two libraries, Pandas and NumPy, where we will be having dedicated one session each. So you will get to learn more about those library in those sessions. So don't worry about it as of now. Okay, fine. Okay, cool. So now let's talk more about the operations. Okay, file operations. So what are different kind of files we can read, how we can read. So we will learn about that more in detail. Okay, fine. So Python file management system, right? So far we have seen how to read, write, and print from standard input and standard output. Okay, as a quick recap, we had this print function for output, and input for input we had this input function, right? So we all use print formatting to print various kind of data types like int and variable. Now, how do we read files? Okay, so that is the question. So there is this open function. So before reading or writing a file, we have to open it using Python's inbuilt function open. Okay, so I mean, this is obvious, right? Before, how do you read a book? You have to open the book first to in order to read it. So that's what it is saying. Before reading or writing, you have to open it first using a built-in open function. Okay, we open a file using the syntax. So this is the syntax: open, file name, and then access mode. We will see what all these different access modes are, right? Now, once you have opened it, it is a file object which is returned whenever you open a file to read or write. Okay, let's see. Fine. So access mode determines the mode in which file has to be opened. So we will see in detail more about this access mode, whether it has to be read, write, append. A complete list of possible is given below in the table, right? There is another optional parameter and default file access mode is R. Okay. Now, what is buffering? It is a concept of being parked aside for now, right? It's an optional parameter, usually useful when we have to read large files, those into gigabytes. So sometimes we have very large file. That time we learn about this buffering function more. Okay. So buffering ratios the amount of input that is read at one shot, much like a nutritionist who's ration food, like looking to lose weight, right? So what does it mean? So you see buffering option also here, right? So basically, it is important when you have to read really long files. Okay, and how basically how it determines it, that how much you will eat in one shot. Like your nutritionists tell you, right? How much you should eat in one meal. So that's what how much amount of input that is read in one shot. So that is decided by buffering. Okay, so if buffering is enabled, instead of trying to read an entire file at one shot, the used file is read in chunks of bytes in memory. Otherwise, RAM will go mad. Okay, think of 24 GB file being read at one shot. So it is not possible. So again, this will be useful only if you have to read such a large file, but mostly it doesn't happen. So mostly we don't use this option. But in case you should be aware about it, in case you have to read it, then you can look for this option. Okay. 0 to switch buffering off and 1 to select line buffering. Integer greater than 1 to indicate a fixed size chunk of buffer. Okay. Okay. Fine. The read method reads a string from an open file. It is important to note that Python string can have binary data apart from the text data. Okay. And then file object read, and then you have to give count. Here you can pass the parameter number of bytes to be read from the open file. This method starts reading from the beginning of the file. If count is missing, then it tries to read as much as possible, maybe until end of the file. Again, you can give the count, but it doesn't matter. At least I have not used it. Simply what, so we will see its use case more as we go along. So one thing to summarize, what you have to remember is, first you have to define the object in which you are opening a file. So you say open file name and what access mode you have to open. Once you have defined that object, you just say whether you want to read it, write it, or whatever you want to do. Okay. So these are some of the access modes. Let's go them one by one. Okay. So R is the one that is default access mode, in which open a file for reading only. So in this, you cannot make any changes to the file because it is only read only mode. You might have seen open Excel, right? Whenever you open Excel, it shows you at the pop-up, right? Read only mode. If you want to enable write only mode, you have to click something, right? Same way. By default, it is read only mode only. Okay. So file pointer is placed at the beginning of the file. This is the default mode. Then you have another mode as RB, it opens a file for reading only in binary format. Okay, again, this normally we use R only, but if you have a binary file, then it is a binary format, right? Then you have R plus. That means it is both for reading and writing. Okay. Then you have RB again, which is reading and writing in binary format. Then you have W, that is writing only, right? Overwrites the file if file exists. Okay, and if file does not exist, create a new file. Then you have WB, which is binary format. Then you have W plus, which is both for writing and reading. Okay, uh, it overwrites the existing file, or else it will create a new file. Okay, then you have A, which is appending. So it only appends in the file. It does not delete anything in the file. It will only append. So the file pointer, if you see, it is end of the file because it is for appending. It is not the beginning. Okay. So if file does not exist, it will create a new file for writing. Again, A is for binary format. Don't have to worry about. Then you have A plus, which is for both appending and reading. So it will read also if you have A plus. Then you have W plus, which is for writing. So it will read also if you have A plus. Then you have W plus, which is for appending. So it will read also if you have A plus. Then you have W plus, which is for writing. So it will read also if you have A plus. Then you have W plus, which is for appending. So it will read also if you have A plus. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry about it. I did not realize that I have that I got disconnected. Let me share my screen. And can somebody help me out that till what point I was audible? I explained this right line command. So did you guys hear this or not? No? Okay. Okay. So I will repeat this. But this page was clear, right? I was telling you fo.tell, fo.seek. Dot tell command was done, right? Okay, let me quickly recap, no problem. So in fact, I was gonna show you the demo. So let's do that, okay? So what I did is uh, yeah. So simply let me do this only. So let's say if I have to open some file, right? What I will do is simply open is a default function in Python. I can simply do f1 dot text file and I can give the mode. So let's say I want to give it in a mode A plus, right? So if you see what is this file open, it is some object, right, which has been created. Now what I want to do, now let me just do this. Okay, let me, if I do this dot tell, so it is at 0. Okay, now let's say if you want to append something, because this was an empty file which I created, right? So let's say if I have to add something in this file, what I will do, I have simply added this line. Now I will do simply fo dot write lines. Okay, so it is asking what do you want to do, write lines, and then I give this list. Okay, and that's it. So if I do fo dot tell now, you see it is now at 38 because it tells you at the end of the line. So if I count now length of this, it will be 38. Okay, because let's do that, right? If I count this length 18, right? Then you have blank this, then you have again this is right. So 18 plus 18 36, and then these two symbol 38. So that's why it is telling 38. Okay, so that's how you can do it. Now simply I have to do fo dot read. That's all. Okay, now I have, now let me, first of all, let me show you whether it has written or not. Okay, so it has written these two lines, right? So now what I have to do is simply I will read again. So let me read again this file. Let's say I read it like this, r plus f over read. You see, now you can read this file. You just have to read it again after appending, and then that's all. So that's how you read the file. That is the only important thing. There are infinite other options available, but only usefuls are these only. Whenever you have a text file, how do you read it? You simply use the open function, okay, and you use this r plus symbol and you read it. But let's say if you want to make any changes, append or something, then you can open it a appending mode. You add write lines to this, and that's it. So let's say if I want to write lines again, I can do that. Write lines again, list. Okay, simply if I open, it will be again twice it has written. You want to see? So, yeah. Yep. So that is what the useful is the part is, and then you can simply close that file operations. Okay, fine. Then you have renaming and deleting file also. So there is another module called OS. Okay, it is provided the method that you help you perform file processing operations such as renaming and deleting. To use this module, you have to import it. So first you have to import OS. So I have imported it. Now you can simply do os dot rename and current file name and the new name. So let's say if I have to rename, what I can do is os dot rename. The current file name was f1 dot txt. Now let's say I want to do f2 dot txt. I can do that. So it says permission cannot be accessed because it is used by other process. So I'm just checking whether I have, okay. You know why it is not giving? Because I did not close this file. It is still red over here. So I have to close that file first. How can I close it? fo dot close, and fo1 also I opened now. So fo1 also I close. Now let me try. Okay, now also it is not letting me because it is again open somewhere else. But I have closed it from here. Okay. The problem was because it says that it cannot be done because it is used by another process. The one thing is you should make sure that you are closing it, but that's what I'm wondering, that I have closed it, why still it is not letting me do it. Okay. Okay, let me show you another example. Let's say I created a new file, ff1. Now if I do this ff1 to f2, it will work, right? So this function work, and it's not like this command does not work, because if you see ff1 से अभी f2 हो गया. This one I just created. It's just that it is telling कि F1 नहीं हो पाएगा because sometimes you know what happens, I opened it over here also. तो अगर आपने notice किया हो, like if you might have noticed, if you open something ना, तो एक यहाँ पे this temp file is generated. So somewhere that some temp file is being generated. So if you just clean up your folder or close all your folder and then try again, it works sometimes, right? So that it is those some small glitches only, nothing else. Simple. Then you can simply remove also. If you do os dot remove file name, it will be removed. So if you do remove f2 dot text, it will be removed also. So as you can see, it's gone from your system. Now you just have f1. Okay. So these are some of the small operations which you can perform. Then you have this make directory, which means that you can actually create the folder also within the thing. So all these commands exist, like you can create your folder also from here. So let's say if you want to create a folder, you can do that, right? So os dot mk directory, and then you give f1. Let's see. So let's see what happens. तो सी F1 फोल्डर बन गया, ये ब्लैंक है but it has created. So you can create a directory, you can change the directory also, right? So let's say what is the current directory if you want to know. So there is this called get working directory. So get cwd. Okay, so if you do that, so this is the working directory I am in. So my notebook, it is at this location, right? Now if let's say if I want to change it, so what I can do, simply do the change directory ch. So sorry, chwd chdir, and then that new directory. So if I do chdir and I want to go into f1 directory, right? I can do that. Now if I check my what is my get current current working directory. It is this. Now it is within F1. So likewise, like this, you can change. So what all things you can do? You can check the file name, you can remove the file name, you can create a new working directory, you can even change your working directory. All these things you can do just within Python only. Okay, without switching to the notebook, right? Okay, cool. Fine. So let's look at some more other examples. So these are the few things, right? Similarly, as I was telling, right, there is no lack of the content available. So you have plenty of content available already, right? So this is the one link, very good link, which I found for all this, whatever I'm teaching you. Okay, so I am actually sharing it. So there is some question, get CWD, what this C means? Current. Get current working directory. Okay. So this is the link I have shared with you guys. So if you open this, right? So this has chapter. So this is like a notebook. This has chapter wise chapter, all the things, whatever I'm teaching you, right? Here also they have explained in very nice way, right? Sorry. Okay, they have also taught in a very nice way. So for some of the topics, in fact, I feel they have more detailed example. That's the reason I thought of sharing it with you and just walking you through from here. So for example, this, right, file handling. So today we are learning file handling only, right? So you can actually go through this link, file handling, and then read about it. So like most of the things I have already told you, but these are some of the few practical examples which I found it's very interesting over here. So for example, here, right, we already saw R is for read purpose, W is for writing, A is for append, and R plus is for read and write, W plus is for write and read, and append is append and read. Okay, how you do it? Simply file you open, and then you give the mode, right? And then so let's say there is a file named geek. It will be opened with a reading mode, and then it will print each and every line of it. So that also you can do. Okay, so for example, let's say if you don't want to read the entire file together, if you want to read it line by line, you can do that. Or else you can do the same thing what we did, right? You simply open it and we do the file dot read, that's all. So this file dot read will simply print whatever you have in that file. Okay. Then let's say if you want to write something in your file, you can open it. You can just do file dot write this, and simply close the file. So when you close it, you open that file in your notepad. You will see all these lines will be written over there. Okay, right? Then it's same thing with the append. So append also, it will append whatever you are writing over here. Okay, cool. Fine. So all these things are there. You can just go through it. They are in more details, but that is what about how to read from a file in Python. Again, all these things we have already discussed. So I'm just checking what all things we have not discussed. We can go through that in detail, right? Uh, so we have already seen, right? Write line command also we have seen. You can simply write lines, close it. So that is also we have seen. Then you can do the seek command, right? It takes from where you want to go in a file, that you can do. You can read line by line also. Okay, so all these things we can do, right? So so this is one way to do. Another is with a statement. Okay, yeah. So this is something which we have not read. Okay, so far what we were doing is we were creating an object like fo dot that open object, and then I was doing f1 dot read and all these things, right? But now what you can do is we can do the same thing with a statement also. So with open file name as file, and just simply do whatever you want to do like this. So let's say instead of defining, let's say here what I'm doing is simply give with and then open your file name. Then here whatever you want to do as file1, okay, and then just do f1 dot write. So if you see, it is more or less similar only. So like what we did here, right? यहाँ पर तो आप जैसे यहाँ डिफाइन करते हो कि कौन सा फाइल नेम देना है, देन ओपन करना है, ये करना है, राइट? इंस्टेड ऑफ दिस यू कुड हैव जस्ट डू विथ whatever you want to do here as give file name fo1, that's all. Then whatever you want to do, same thing, right? So let's say if you want to read fo1 dot read, you just want to print it, you print whatever you want to do, you can do. So this is another way of writing it. So you should not get confused that if somebody has written like this, so you should not get confused. It's equivalent to this only. Okay, fine. Okay, then what more things we have? Then writing to file. So we have already seen writing to file, appending to file also we have seen. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, I think we have seen all of them. So I mean, it was just a good thing which I found. So I thought of sharing it with you. So whenever you have any doubt, whenever you feel things are not clear with presentation, if you are going through it, let's say after some point in time, you can actually go through these tutorials. So it is very nice. So topic wise, you will find anything. What is introduction to Python and all, right? Today only we learned about namespace scope. It is there. Okay, then there are operators. So we have already learned about all these operators, right? But still, if you, let's say you want to revise, you can go through it. Control flow, functions padhe the humne, right? Everything it is there. So in fact, it is mentioned in more detail. So if you want, you can go through it. Codes bhi de rakhe hai. If you want, you can practice those code in your notebook. So to make sure things are working and you understand it. Okay. With that, let's quickly complete this topic. Fine. Okay. So tell me, to open a file, this is for reading. What we should use to open a file? A, B, C. What should be the right thing? Answers. A. So with this statement also will have to close it. So close. See, with open statement it doesn't mean you are opening it, right? If you are opening something, you will have to close it, no matter how, if you are opening with this statement or with some other method. Okay, cool. So somebody wrote A or C. It should be C because just now we see, right? It does not take this slash. You will have to give two slashes if you want to read this file. So if you have to give this, it has to be C. Okay, fine. To open a file, the same file for writing, we will use what? A, B, C, D. D, B or D. Let's see what is the difference between B or D. ठीक है, तो अभी अपन क्या करते हैं, इसको practically we will check. How I can check practically? So what is my current working directory? It is this, right? So let's say I want to, what was that command? I want to open a file, okay? So let's say some out file hai which I want to open. Now what I can do is I had okay. So I had this f1.txt file, right? It gave me error. What is the error? Positional argument follows the keyword argument. Okay. If I do this, it worked. So actually I cannot give file like this. So the correct answer is B. Okay. And let's see what is this open thing, why it was giving us error. Let's just try to understand that. Okay. Open in Python. So in this function, what does it takes? Sorry. Mm, yeah, so it just takes file and it takes mode. Okay. So why it was giving error, anybody can guess. In fact, I told you this problem earlier also. When I was teaching you function, na, that time you guys remember that it is positional argument for whenever you are giving some value in a function, right? You always give this later. Yeah, or I have to assign mode over here. Either I say clearly this. So basically, whatever value I am giving here, it has to be, either at the last, or I give the keyword argument at both the places. Then only it will read. So if I do this, it will read the file. Okay. It says it is not readable. Why it is not readable? Python for DS. Oh, sorry. Because I gave the mode W. That's why it says it is not readable. Right? I can only write it this. It is not readable. Okay. Cool. So this is B. Answer is correct over here. Okay. Fine. Then you have to read two characters from a file, object file. What you should do? Only two characters. No others? A, B, C, D. I think there will be two in this. A, C, D. Which one is the right answer? Why D? It will be like this. Let's see this, ना? ये भी करके देखना है. Let's see this. Okay. And if I do, oh, I've not read two. सिर्फ यही है. अच्छा. What it? Is it an empty file or what? Uh, oh, it got empty. That's why. Fine. But uh, see, see, I'm not able to even delete it. This it because it says it has opened somewhere. I will. Okay, I will see that and fix it later. Okay, fine, no problem. I delete all these items later. But yeah, so the answer is this: read two. Okay, answer is A, not D. Fine. Now, what is the output over here? Let's say you have a variable that is none. Now in range 2 with 5, with open and text this as F. If I is greater than 2, then break print F dot closed. What do you guys think? Any questions? Any true F D? Okay, all are getting mixed things. Let's see what does it mean. Okay, so let's say I have let me create a file with data.txt, and let me first of all change the working directory also. because I am not currently at the right directory. So this is my current working directory. Okay, now let me run this. So it says true. Okay, now what it does is, and let's see if it has written anything in data.txt or not. Nothing. So what it was doing, for I to range of 5, it has opened the data file in a writing mode. Okay, and if uh, it is greater than 2, then only it will break. Okay, and print f dot closed, right? So f dot closed means whether it has closed or not. So it has closed. Okay, so that's why it has printed true, right? Now what does it mean? I mean, basically what we were testing, whether it has with command. So I think somebody asked the question right just now, that with command whether it will open by default or not, but it looks like it has closed. So I take my words back. I think with command it is closing at its own, because we have not say that specifically that this file should be closed. Still it has closed, because let's say if I do this, right, if I do this here, and if I check whether fo1 is closed or not, it will say false because it has not closed, right? So I will have to close it first. Fo1 dot close. Now if I check, it is closed, true, right? So you will have to close it, but with command you don't have to close it. So all we are testing is, I have opened a file with command, whether it has closed or not. So it has closed, that's why answer is true. Okay, fine. Okay, so answer is true. What is the use of tell method in Python? We just saw, right? Tell method क्या बताता है? It tells you the current position, end position, or file is opened or not, or none of the mentioned. What does it tell you? A, right? Yes. It tells you the current position of within the file. Okay. Then what is the correct sentence of renaming a file? Rename, then you give current file name and new file name. So A is the answer. Okay. What is the output of the following line of code? I'm just opening the file with rw, print name of the file fo.name. rw मोड था क्या कुछ? rw प्लस, इसमें ऑप्शंस नहीं है. Let's see what it does. Where I was reading it. So rw, there is no mode itself. Okay, so I think it will be an error because rw plus is not a mode. Okay, so it was kind of a trick question. Okay, what is the use of seek method? What seek method tells you? Correct position, previous position of at the offset, or correct current position at the offset. What does it tell you? No, C is not the right answer. C is for tell. Na? Tell tells you what is the current position of the within the file. We are asking for seek method. A, current position at the offset. So just now we saw, right? In fact, let's see here, seek example. I think it was here. So there was some seek example, right? That's what I'm just trying to find it out. Yes. So it seek takes the file handle to the nth position, okay, and then from the beginning. Okay, so it will be taking you current at the offset. So current position at the offset. So A is the right answer. Okay, fine. So then let's take 10 minutes of break. We will come back at 1 o'clock and we'll be completing this exception handling part as well. Okay, cool. So let's take 10 minutes break. Let's come back at 1. Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry, I was not able to, I did not get the access. So, okay, let's get started. I hope you all got a nice break. Fine. Okay, so let's quickly learn this new topic for today's session. So basically, it is on exception handling, right? So we all write code, and every time you say, I might get some error. In fact, you also might get some error, right? Okay, sometimes it is module not found, index not found, and all these things, right? So imagine like you are writing the code. Now, what if that error happened that time? How do you handle it, right? So we call it as exception handling. Okay, what is exception? It is an error that happens during execution of a program. When that error occurs, Python generates an exception that can be handled, which avoids your program to crash. Okay, so basically, how do we handle error? That as simple as that, right? So why use exceptions? So exceptions are convenient in many ways for handling error and special condition in a program. You think like you have a code that can produce an error, then you can use exception handling, right? So let's see with example, what does it mean? How can we handle it, right? So how does it work? So it enables you handle error gracefully and do something meaningful about it. Okay, like displays a message to user if intended file not found. Python handles it using try except block. So you might say ki when there is error, what is the point of, either we should solve it, right? Then what is the point of displaying the error, right? So what does it do? So sometimes you might have seen, right? The error is not very clear and you don't know what to do, right? So what this exception handling does, you can make the error simplified, right? I mean, simplified as in when you know what is that error exactly, why it is coming from, when it is easy to understand the error, and that's how easy to solve it, right? So that is what it is, that let's say whenever you are getting error, if you can show some meaningful messages that why that error is happening or what to do when such error is happening, right? That will be really helpful. And how we can do it? Using this try except block. Okay, so error handling is done through the use of exceptions that are caught in try blocks handled in except blocks. Okay, so if error is encountered, a try block code execution is stopped and transferred down to the except block. Okay, so what will happen is, let's say whatever code you have written, right? You can write it within this try block. You can say try and then write your block as it is. Okay, your entire code. Let's say whenever a code fails, right? Or you find any error, you get any error in this line, what it will do? Immediately it will stop. It will not run the next line within this try block. It will immediately go to this except block. Okay, and then whatever kind of error it is there, it will go to that except block and it will execute this code. So here typically we type printing messages, that what kind of error it is, how you can resolve it. Typically the use cases, if we can may show some meaningful message to the user that what is that problem and how they can resolve it. Okay, so the code in the finally block will be executed regardless of whether an exception or occur or not. Okay, so let's see what all different kind of things are there, right? So let's understand with simple example. Okay, so let's say abhi humne dekha, right? You have to read a file. How we can do it? So we simply read this, that okay, open some missing file and it can be read. So let's try that out. Okay, let me show you what if I just run this simply in Python, what happens. Okay, so let's say here I have simply run this. Okay, let's see what happens. So it gave error. It gave error. File not found. No such file or directory. Okay, makes sense. It has just given this file. It has not run anything afterwards. Okay. In this case, it is still very much clear, right? But in some cases, it may not. So let's try this, what we can do. Agar the same code, if I write within this, right now, let's see. See what it does? It did not give all these random stuff. Because in this case, still it is very clear file not found error. But not every time that is the case. Sometimes it is such a big thing. Like, I'm not sure if now, but sometimes you have seen, right? I get some 10 or 15 line of code, and then at the end there is error, right? So sometimes it is not that easy to read or understand. Okay, so what this does is it will avoid printing all those unnecessary lines, whatever you are seeing here. It will just directly tell you what is the your problem has happened and what to do about it. So here it is telling you in a clean way file does not exist. Okay, and how I handled it, I simply put this code in try block. Okay, so what it will make sure, whenever a error happened, it will directly go to this except. Okay. Now in this except also I can give multiple excepts, like I can give what kind of error it is. So I know this is input output error, IO error we call. Okay, so when it is IO error, it will go here. We will see if there is some other kind of error, we can give those except blocks. It will go there, else it will print that. So it is like if and else loop. तो हमने if else पढ़ा था ना. If that is the thing, then do this. Else you go here. Else you go here. It is like that only. So you can think of this try as a if block. So if everything is going fine, it will work. If not, then it will go here. It will check if it is a IO error, it will do this. Okay, or because let me show you here. Let's say if it is some kind of other error. Okay, there can be index error also. So let's say if it is index error. Okay, let's say index error. Let me type. Okay, so you see, it is not index error, it is IO error. That's why it is just printing this. Let's say if this is index error, it will print this. So it is like a if and else block. Okay, and we will see what all different kind of exceptions error are available which you can give. Okay, fine, so that's how it works. So how this code work? First is statement between try and accept. So this is line was code were executed. If no exception occurs, अगर कुछ exception occur नहीं होता, तो everything would have skipped. So for example, I already know there is this f1 file exist. So let me do that. You see, nothing happened. Why? Because these were successfully done. So these two were never executed. Okay. So it will be executed only if some error will happen. Otherwise, it won't. Clear? So if no exception occurs, then none of the except block will be run. So it will be skipped. Okay. If file does not exist, then exception will be raised and rest of the code and try block will be skipped. So after this, no of the line will be read because it is useless, right? It has failed in this case. What is the point? Whatever I do after this, right? And when exception occurs, if exception type matches, they will try to match with exception type. So अगर type match करेगा, then it will go to the exception name keyword and it will that code will be executed. So let's imagine in this case f2, right, when does not exist. Let's say I don't give this, I can comment this, right? I have commented this. So you see, what it did, because it did not match with any of the except thing. Okay, it just gave me that no such file or uh, this thing. Okay. Right, so that is what we have. Then I have to give a normal except also, jahan par it doesn't matter, right. So a normal method also, just a second. You see, so Therefore, if you are not sure what kind of error it might give, so always it is better to give except without matching any error, because you may not know that what error it might happen, right? You know that if index error happened, then you do this. If IO error happened, then you do this. But you have to give a final else also, right? When you are not sure that is there any other kind of error happening. So that's why always give this except block, and then multiple except condition you can give if you are sure that this kind of error can happen. Clear? So it is, as I said, right, it is like a kind of that if else loop. So you give else if condition, but at the end you have to give else condition also. What if none of the condition met, right? Then what to do, then how to handle. So that's why always it is good to give this safe net, that if none of this error type matches, then you have to print this. Okay. Clear? Let's see one more time, right? So as I was telling you, right, here, that you give IO error, so it will print IO error. But let's say if it is not a IO error, it is something else, then you give except. So what does except go? If this is not a IO error, some other error, it will go here. But let's say if there is no error, it will go to else and finally also. So if I copy paste this entire thing, right, let me show you what it does. So let's say मेरे पास already F1 file था. So if I do this, I got this. So you can could give this else condition. Yes, it's a bug-free code. So that I know my code has been run successfully without any problem. Okay. And then finally line will also will be executed. So what, so this is our typical structure, but this is on you. If you want to give, you can give else or finally. It's your wish completely. Even if you don't give, that is not a problem. The important thing is you should give your code and try. You should give multiple accept conditions, and at the end you should give a accept, so that maybe if your error is not matching with all these defined type, so that it can run. And let's say if nothing is running, nothing is, there is no error, then it will run this else or finally command. Okay, so this is like something like by default it has run if your error has run successfully. Let's say अगर यहाँ पे error रहेगा, तो of course you will just get oops, file does not exist because IO error happened, right? And finally command, it will run no matter what. So as it is written, right, finally is something like it will be executed no matter what. So this you can put it as like a end comment or something, any other thing. But as I said, right, it is not used much. So only important thing to remember, I'm just repeating again. You put your code in try block, right? If you are already knowing that what kind of typical errors might happen, you give those except errors, so that you can give more meaningful resolution or comments over here, that file does not exist, please put file. Or let's say if it is an index error, index does not met, or your index is out of list, is out of index, something like that. Or let's say because there are unknowns, right, you never know what all errors might happen. So always give except command also, to know that none of the error is matching, right? And this is sufficient. You don't have to give else or finally typically. Okay, cool, fine. So as you see, right, another thing we can do is raising exception. To raise your exceptions from your own methods, you need to raise keyword as shown below, right? So how we can raise exception? So I mean, you one way is you do this, try and accept and all these things, right? Another way could be you can raise error also, or these exceptions also, right? So let's say if this thing is happening, for example, let's say if this is a input age, and if age is negative number, so you can raise an error that this is not true. So one way to handle error is try and accept. That is one way, right? But another way of handling is you can raise errors if in between also. So let's say So this is a classic example. Let's say you are taking some input from user, right? Have you seen in UI, आप अगर कुछ गलत फील्ड डालने की कोशिश करते हो, it gives you error, right? That this is not acceptable, it should be in caps on, or it should be in small cases, or there should not be any number. So all these are assigned using raising exceptions only. So you can do that like this. So if let's say if age is less than 0, then you can raise value error and share your message, whatever you want to print. Age cannot be less than 0, right? So this is another way to handle the error, right? Likewise, you can do. Okay, so one way. So these are the two ways to show it over here. Either you can use raise value error like this, or you can use the try and catch block. So you can say you put it in try block, and then you can use this function. So if you are using this function, it will be raising the value error, and there is a value error, it will be print this message. Okay, else it will print no problem. So let's try to do this in Python. So here I have defined this function. Now I am simply running this function or using this function. Okay, so what it does, I am entering age. Let's say I entered -1. So you see what it printed, because it was raised a value error. So value error, which means that enter is oops, age cannot be less than 0. So it has printed this. Okay, so error is, and this is the argument we are getting, because we are getting this argument from this value error. Okay, so iska argument I have passed. So this way you can do, right? Or let's try, if I do this, let me just acha, it would work, right? Because it will not fail. Yeah, yep. So actually I was thinking that, I mean, see, ultimately, because this is negative number, right? You have to put some net over here so that it know that I have to raise a error, isn't it? So that's how you can define raise a error if it is negative. So what it has done, it has raised a value error, and then here I have put a net. If as soon as there is a value error come, you print this statement. That's all. So that's why it has printed this statement. Error is, then e dot argument is coming from this value error. So this argument I'm printing it over here. That's all. Okay. Let's say if I run this again and I have it 10, then there is no problem. Age is even, because it will go here. Age is even. It will print this statement. Then else will be executed as if there is no error. So no problem. Okay. Fine. So exception object, an exception can have an argument, which is a value that gives additional information about the problem, right? So just now we saw it is an argument, right? That we have got, so that it can give us additional information. The content of the argument vary by exception. You capture an exceptions argument by supplying a variable in the except cause as follows. So you capture that argument like that. So try this, accept this, and you can print the value of argument. Okay. So let's try here this one. Okay. So let's say I am putting with, I am entering number, and then I just want the seal function of this. Here is the error. Let's say if anything happened, syntax error. So I have given multiple things. Either if there is a syntax error, type error, value error, it should show over here. So let's say I give yu. Okay, so it's an error, right? So error is this. Invalid literal for it with base this, right? What if I print argument? So this is the argument, and that's what I have got here, right? Simply let's try, if I give -6, if it works. Okay, it works. So it has given here तो अगर मैं number देखूंगी तो it might have given the value. Because I did not give any else condition, that's why it did not tell me. So that's why people typically give else so that they know code has run successfully, right? So I know code runs successfully, right? Code ran successfully. So if I see number is 77, like that, right? So there is error. Error is 9.9. It does not take the decimal like that, right? You so that's how you decide. You give try except blocks because it is very important when you are running big codes, right? That time it is very important to make sure you are not getting into any error. Okay, fine. So with that, let's take a small quiz. So tell me one thing, when will the else part of try except else will be executed? What will be the answer? A, B, C, D. You guys have answered? A. Why A? Always no. Finally is what is run always, not else. I'm asking else part. So A is wrong answer. Tell me between B, C, D. No, B is also wrong answer. The correct answer is C. When no exception occur. Because exception will occur, then exception block will run. La. Else block, why else block will run? So you can think of like if try block fails, then it goes to exception, else it will go to else block. Isn't it? You remember like that. Try, if everything is running successfully, then it will go to else, otherwise it will go to except. Clear? So else will be run when no exception occurs. Okay, what is the output of this code? Do you want to look at it and give it a try? Just look at it carefully. What do you guys think? What will be there? One, two, three, or error? One. Why one? Let's see. You want to print? Let's do it in Python. Then we'll see the answer by ourselves. Okay. 2 is the answer. Why 2? Because it tried, right? And finally is the one which will be returning, right? So it see, agar finally nahi hota, then it would have returned 1. If I will commit this, then it will return 1. But 1 is overwritten, okay? Wait, there is this. Okay, I have to give ya to try return 1 or accept. I can give pass over here. You see, now it has given 1. But what was happening when I was giving finally? So finally will run anyhow. Okay. So return you will get 2. So that's why you were getting 2. Okay. So the answer was 2. Now here list 1, 2, 3, and when I'm trying to print 3, what do you think? What kind of error it is? Name error, value error, index error, or type error? What kind of error is that? Index error. Yes. Because you are running out of index. It is only 0, 1, 2. There is no 3. Okay. Last but not the least, an exception is an object, special function, standard module, or a module. What it is? Exception is an It's an object error or what? Actually, just now we saw it is an object. Okay, so exception is an object. Fine. So with that, I will just quickly show you some of the examples over here on the same website, right? Geeks for Weeks. So in this, you can see there is something called exception handling, right? So within this, if you go, they have also explained in such a nice way that where do you use these, right? So for example, here we are using some amount, and let's say if I want to raise something that if amount is less than or this value or greater than certain value, then you have to do something. Okay, but let's say if you are printing this, right, there is some syntax error. So as soon as you run this, you will get that invalid syntax error, right? So how you can handle it? Simply give the exception. Exceptions are raised whenever a program is synthetically correct, okay, but the code resulted in error. This error does not stop the execution of the program. However, it changes the normal flow of the program, okay. So you can use try these blocks, try and accept blocks. So these are the typical standard way to use these try and accept, right? So as I was telling you, accept is for catching any kind of error, so that you have to have. But let's say if you want to catch specific expressions or specific exceptions, that you can do this. So that you can say if you want to catch index error, then you catch index error and show those statement only. So why we need these kind of different uh, exception when we already have accept, right? So in simple terms, right, when I want to be more particular about what is the error and what can be the solution, if I want to show those meaningful useful information, then that's why you need these specific exceptions. Agar value error hai, so you tell very clearly that it is the value error, and if in fact you tell the solution also, isn't it? In print command you can tell the solution, right? Index error में थोड़ी आप value error का solution बताओगे, right? So that's why these kind of different specific exceptions are important, so that you can tailor your error or message command such that you are giving exact and up to date information, up to the point information. Okay, जैसे कि यहाँ आपने देखा, you can they have defined a function, right? So if it is less than 4, so you should be doing it, right? So this they have function define this function and they are trying it out now, this function, right? So now they are saying that accept zero division error. It may happen that you are giving 0 over here, isn't it? So if it is, so in a, if a is equal to 3, right? So I mean, if it is 3, right, so you might get into zero division error over here, isn't it? So then if you are getting zero division error, you say that zero division error occurred and handled, like that, right? Or you might go into the name error. So you say it is a name error, or otherwise you can have just accept and just print normal error message. Okay. So with else cause also we have seen, if accept will not run, then else will run. Okay. So if there is no error, then else will be executed. Right. So that is what we have seen. Then raising exceptions also we have seen, right? We can raise exceptions, name error, value error. Okay. So we can say raise name error high there, or if that is that, we can just print an exception. Okay. Then try accept also we have seen. So these are kind of a error typically happens, right? IO error, file cannot be opened. Keyboard interrupt मतलब unrequired keys pressed by user. Value error मतलब built-in function receive a wrong argument. So if अगर आप value error something like you can raise if certain value is not below certain things or something like that, right? EOF is end of file error. Import error is it is unable to find the module. So you have seen, right, import error. Whenever I try to import something which does not exist, it gives me import error. Okay, so all these kind of error exist. In fact, for more information, you can refer over here if you really want to see. So that it is that previous thing only. Okay, right. Likewise, you can give some more examples. So I'm just checking quickly if there is any further example which interesting example which we have not covered. I will show you that. So most of them we have covered, right? Uh, okay, fine. So these are some of the exceptions, right? Index error, assertion error. So there is something called this assertion error we do when we do the testing, right? So like, so to give you example, whenever we, let's say we, so if you guys have done coding or something, right, you will know that we have to write unit testing of any code. So what does it mean? Let's say I have written that function and it is working, right? So I have to make sure that it will work for that particular thing if there is nothing has changed. So we write those unit test. So how do we write? So we use, that time we use lot of assert function. So for example, assert 1 is equal to 1, like that. So it is working fine, right? It did not give any error. Similarly, अगर कुछ और अलग हो जाता, I will get this assertion error. So what does it mean? Basically, you can think of it as like a equal thing, but not like a equal. It's like a condition. Assert means, let's say, when you were running the code, right, you were getting certain value, correct? So let's say you have run this code. Now you know that k ka value 1 hona chahiye. So here you can say assert k is equal to 1, right? Because you know, if everything, if nothing has changed, your function works properly, then you should get k ka value 1. But let's say if something has changed for some other reason, right? तो k का वैल्यू चेंज हो गया होगा, isn't it? लेट्स से यहीं पे ही अगर मान लीजिए ये एक्सेप्ट पास ना होके मैंने कुछ फंक्शन में चेंज कर दिया और फाइनली ट्रू हो गया ये, राइट? अगर मैं अभी यही रन करूं तो मेरा अलर्ट फेल हो जाएगा. So that's why we and the thing we will talk about this in more detail in upcoming sessions. But just for your understanding, that we have this assert function just to test it out that nothing has changed. We typically use it in unit testing of Python code. Okay, so that's why you have a assertion error, and that's what you are seeing here. Assertion error when assert statement fails. Similarly, you have attribute error, import error, key error, name error, memory error, and type error. So all these kind of different error happens which you can handle. Okay. So I think I have covered most of them. So all these things are done. So are there any questions uh, or queries? So what do you want me to repeat, Swati? Swasti? Sorry. Swasti said, please repeat, ma'am. So not sure when you type this. You can tell me again what do you want me to repeat what? You have to tell me repeat what. Okay, are there any other questions or queries? Okay, are you guys trying the notebook? So I believe whatever I am showing you here, right? So those are getting shared with you in the portal. So all those things are getting uploaded in the portal. So I would request you guys, please go through it. Please try to run them, okay? So that you can make use out of it. You, if you make any mistake, you can, uh, ask those questions. If you are unable to run something, we can discuss those questions, right? Because see, 3 hours if I continuously teach you some, there will be so many things and you will not be able to handle them. Okay, so we have put 3 hours so that at least see, 2 hours is my contribution, 1 hour should be your contribution. 1 hour contribution from you I want is, if you have any queries, questions, you ask those. If you want me to repeat something, I can do it. If you have run some code and you are getting some error, uh, right, that I can solve it for you. I can repeat that. We can do the coding also, right, together. So but I will need that kind of response from you guys. Okay, so please try those notebooks at home, and if you are getting any error or any problems, we can discuss that. Okay. Cool. Any other further questions? No? Okay, good then. Then I think then we'll be meeting on Monday. So we have 2 days break. So I would request you again, 2 days are good enough to, install if you have not installed Anaconda, run these Python notebooks, try to, whatever notebooks have been shared with you, try to run them one by one, try to define some functions, so that, you get more confident enough uh, with the Python and this functions, because now uh, it's been 1 week, another I believe 1.5 week is remaining. So but we will be going into more details and more complicated things. So far we were learning basics, we were learning more from a theory perspective, but now we will be doing more hands on. तो अगर आपको पाइथन अभी तक आप कंफर्टेबल नहीं हुए हो जुपिटर नोटबुक्स वगैरह रन करने में, इट विल बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर यू. So that's why I'm saying make use of these 2 days. Okay. To to make you familiar with the Python and all these things, right? And yeah, and then we can connect back again on Monday. We will start the session with your queries and questions only. So I would dedicate that half an hour in the beginning. Whatever questions you have, any kind of questions, we can discuss that. Okay. And it's been 1 week, so I would request you guys, if you can give your important feedback to me over LinkedIn. So I'm just sharing my LinkedIn profile link. If you can, just share your valuable feedback. How did you like the session, or what are the certain things which you want to improve, me to improve on? I would definitely take that seriously. Uh, Right. So if you can, give your valuable feedback over this on LinkedIn, that would be really helpful. And yeah, I mean, and thank you so much for your time, and talk to you on Monday. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.